Here we go. Here we go. We just got off stage, on Platinum stage at NFT Expoverse. Great conversations over there. And now we're back in the podcast studio here in Los Angeles at NFT Expo. I'm here with the lovely Ilana Dixon of Redbeard Ventures. Now, the journey that you took to get here into a venture company, talk to us about that journey, but first, a little bit of your background so everyone understands who you are.
For sure. So for everybody listening today, my name's Ilana, also under Trading Female on social. So I work at Redbeard Ventures, which is a Web3 VC. Prior to this, I worked in strategy consulting at both KPMG and Deloitte, and then I switched over to a startup out in LA. But on the side, I really just got deep down the Web3 rabbit hole, and it's really just been a passion of mine for now over a year, investing in different startups that are really building the infrastructure for this next generation in Web3.
So let's pay attention, a little bit of attention to KPMG and Deloitte. When you were doing consulting with them, what were you consulting on?
Yeah, so I worked on financial and accounting infrastructure, specifically implementing Oracle Cloud to different clients. But on the side, I've always just been a huge investor in public stocks, and then I got really deep into crypto and investing in different crypto investments, and then in angel investments through different syndicates.
So this actually pulls on the strings of our hearts, because here at Link2 what we do is invest in mid to late stage growth companies worth in excess of $100 million to $150 million valuation. That's our starting point, right? I've been an angel investor for a long time, and I stopped doing that because I'm now just investing on Link2 platform. But and then your background of accounting and financial analysis with the big firms is a really important skill set to have as you evaluate companies that are from angel, private equity, and public markets. So before we get into Web3, I know that's exciting, and I can see you saying, hey, stop all this other stuff, I want to talk about Web3, but I do want to go through that transition process of the consulting and then the early stage investments, and what drove you and what were the reasons you were doing that?
Yep, definitely. So I have my CPA. I've had it now since I got out of university, and I think in terms of how that helps me, well, I look at their different income statements, their balance sheets, and I really have a better understanding from somebody else who's just getting into the space. But I was looking a lot at their price to earnings model and EBITDA and things like that when I was looking at public investments. And then a boyfriend of mine started a syndicate, so I started following his syndicate, and I saw how exciting it was. I invested early on into SpaceX, Rainbow Wallet, Carta, and I was looking at these companies, and I just saw so much more value, and also given my age and where I'm at in my career, I felt like I could take this risk in companies I truly believe would be the next trillion-dollar company. And so it's exciting to invest in that, and I think just given my background, I have a different outlook in terms of, okay, if they have this much money in the bank, they're having a burn rate of however X, how are they really going to bring value and be able to really sustain a company?
So, and the reason I dig down into this is because what we've seen, we host several times a month, we host something called Link to Learn, whereby it's all about educating people who are either early stage investors or wanting to get into investments. And how do they look at understanding valuations and companies that they want to invest in, right? Because when we invest in companies, we're actually, we're fortunate, because if you look at some of the companies that we invest in, Dapper Labs, Ripple, Block Demon, these companies have already been invested into their Series C, D, E, and F by well-known venture capitalists, Andreessen, Kleiner, SoftBank, et cetera, et cetera.
You forgot Redbeard. We're in a Dapper Labs too.
No way!
Yeah.
How early did you get on in Dapper Labs?
Oh my God. That was before I started at Redbeard, so I can't tell you right now, but when did you guys invest?
We just got access to Dapper Labs maybe about 4 months ago.
Okay, we invested about a year ago.
So you've got a nice valuation there.
Yeah.
But we've got to talk a little bit more about what you have on your portfolio because there might be some interesting things there.
Definitely.
But so what we're seeing is that there's a lot of interest in investing, right? And we've got to educate more people on how to evaluate companies. And your background as a CPA and working with consulting companies is very, very valuable. And that's why I was digging down into that. But let's now go into something you're passionate about, right? So when you started to look at this infrastructure, you were looking at Web3. First, everyone has their own conception of what Web3 is. So let's start with your philosophy of what, or your conception of what you think Web3 is before we go into that.
Yeah, I mean, people explain it like the easiest way where Web 1 is read, Web 2 read and write, and Web 3 is ownership. And for me, I think there's so many facets of like what holds Web3, but things that excite me are giving back to early adapters. So I think Web3 and tokens specifically let you give back to people who early on really just invested in your company. I mean, think about Airbnb and Uber. Like the first people that let you stay in their car, that was a random person, or the first person that let you stay really in their house and trusted somebody, like they didn't get the same rewards, obviously, as the early CEO and the early founders and the early executives, but they were also taking a chance on this company. And so that's one way that really Web3 is able to give back. Another one that I'm really passionate about is your digital identity. So I think eventually your passport, your government, your education, your health records will all be verified through the blockchain. And then the last thing is that play and earn model, where you could actually go ahead and incentivize different actions and get rewarded for those actions. So that's what excites me in this space.
I really do like the way you've described it, read, and then read right, and then read right, and own. So ownership today and digital identity and then owning yourself and owning the assets and being able to control who sees what and monetizing that is the whole crux of Web3. So that becomes really important. And then the play to earn, earn to learn, or learn to earn, that infrastructure is also starting to emerge.
Oh, I'm so excited about the future of education and taking into account Web3, the metaverse, and also access. I think that's going to be huge. I mean, incentivizing kids to go ahead and want to learn, to want to complete different courses, but then also, obviously, accessibility to these people in whether it's developing countries or just places that don't have access.
So, and then your work at Redbeard, when you start to look at Web3, is how do you identify companies that are interesting to you?
Yeah, so I really love focusing on those three things I mentioned, but we're generalists. So we invest in pre-seed to Series A. Our sweet spot's right around that seed. I think DAO infrastructure is really just an important part. So we're investors in Upstream, we're investors in Zero Tech, which are from the founders of Wilder World, and they're letting people come in, create their token, incentivize like voting, and so those companies are really exciting, but I try to look for, as an investor in the space, like what do I use in Web3? Like what do I think is necessary? So Unstoppable Domains is a great one where...
oh my God, yes.
Let's go. That was one that I've been bullish on forever, for as long as I could remember. I reached out to the founder. I was like, I see the vision. Like I believe so much into your digital identity. And I really just like nugged him all the time, like customer, until I was able to get that allocation. Their latest
They gave
round.
you?
Oh yeah, we invested $1 million.
Oh,
stoked.
and you should have called us because we would have done the same.
Yeah, most people would, but yeah, that's an exciting one. So I think for me, it's like what companies excite me that I actually see the future because I personally want to use them. Like, go find me on tradingfemale.nft and Alana.nft. I also own the ENS domains, but Unstoppable is doing 3 times the amount. And I think just their founders are so awesome. So I try to look at like what I invested in, and then also founders. I mean, founders first, as most people will say, and it's okay, have they been successful in their last company? And even if they weren't, like, how are they going to solve the issues right now at hand? And is there actual product market fit?
So as you go from pre-seed, seed, and maybe Series A with Redbeard, how then do you get these companies to the next level? What is that transition point? At what level do you let them go?
Yep. So we have an exciting view. My managing partner, Drew Austin, started Knights of Degen. That's a 20,000 person community. So a lot of times the way that we're able to get into deals is, one, we're actually able to partner with Knights of Degen. We've partnered now with over 15 of our portfolio companies. We've tested out the product. We've sent it out to our customers in our community in Knights of Degen. Another way is we have 100 portfolio companies in the Web3 and crypto space. So we're really easily able to partner with different projects, make introductions, like we're doing that constantly. And also we have a syndicate and a fund, and the syndicate has 3,100 LPs. And so when we syndicate a deal, we're able to tell those 3,100 crypto native individuals about the product, about the company. And I mean, Unstoppable, again, is a great example where all the investors in our syndicate got whatever domain they wanted, and now they're going out, they're advocating to their communities about how exciting it is.
Yeah.
And it just has a network effect.
That's great. Now, was that a business model that happened organically or intentionally?
Kind of both, I want to say. I think over time we realized our true value is in the syndicate, is in our community through Knights of Degen, and then obviously I also do the girls table, so really bringing more women in and being able to use that platform to also highlight different companies.
Let's talk about that platform, because that's something that's important, and it's a lot of energy around that. So you're an emerging VC, and your life in a VC world is new-ish.
Yep.
But you do have the educational and experience background. So as I speak to more and more people, and especially women, I find that a lot of people, a lot of women especially, want to say, hey, it's always been a boys' club. I now want to not join that club, but create our own for a fund, firm, VC. What is that transition look like, and how difficult or easy is this?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you first how I got the name. And originally I had this dinner.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it's the best name.
Yeah.
I had this dinner. There was about 20 women, and right away after, you noticed how connected people got. Like, they wanted to sit at this table. They want to have meaningful conversations. So me and my friend Debbie Soon were like, what do we call this? And I was saying to them, I'm like, listen, I'm just sick of sitting at the guys' table. But honestly, I find them, they're always talking about investing. They're always talking about kind of how to make themselves better, what they're doing at work. Guys are very open about how much they're making. They just talk about it. Then I go over the girls, and they're talking about going out or getting drunk, or boys, or whatever the case. And I'm not saying all, but I'm just saying a lot of people that I was surrounding myself by. And I was like, that's it. I'm calling this the girls' table, and I'm redefining what it means to sit at the girls' table. And that's because, it's on us, right? I'm never going to blame guys for this. I flat out love sitting at the guys' table because I was growing. It's the reason I got into Web3 crypto, because I was curious. So I think that next generation of women, it's going to be hard, but it's on women to really be curious, to ask questions, and to put themselves at the table. And I'd say, listen, this space is hard. There's no right way to do it. It's really risky, but for me, it was okay, the risk was worth the reward. I learned by doing. And so if I had to lose a couple dollars in the beginning, that's okay, because I was learning.
So the girls' table, when you set out to describe their mission, vision, what is that?
Yeah, it's redefining what it means to sit at the girls' table through IRL events, so hosting different dinners and getting different sponsors at different conferences, usually crypto native people, because I love networking. I love bringing people together, whether that's my portfolio companies and connecting people, then also just women in the space. So it's getting people together so you have that next level conversation. And a lot of times at these dinners, I'm like, what do you give to everybody at the table? What can you provide? And then what do you want to receive? And that just drives the conversation, lets people connect. And then also, I have a podcast called The Girls Table, and I've brought on my portfolio companies, I've brought on CEOs, founders, women in the space, and really it's just for people to be able to share their story, because right now I don't think there's enough women who really have an outlet to go ahead and share what they're doing.
So then it comes up to the next question: let's talk about this audience. It may be only 4 people: you, me, and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's all we need.
Yeah, and maybe somebody else that we drag on and says, "Hey," but let's say there's a larger audience to this podcast. Let's assume that, and the girls' table, is that exclusive to women?
For now, I've only had women, and I've had some men. So my portfolio companies, shout out to Wilder World founders, randomly showed up at my brunch thinking it was for men too. And eventually I will open it up to that. I think just for now, I just want to get women together.
Okay. And what kind of women are you looking for?
So I'd say it's founders, creators, and investors, and a mix of the 3. And really those are 3 that I focus on, just to try to get them there and meet somebody new.
And you also mentioned a little bit earlier, you're also looking to accumulate or engage with more LPs. Mm-hmm. And describe the perfect LP for you.
Ooh, high network, hopefully. We've been looking at some corporations who are looking at just getting into Web3 crypto, so we can help consult them in terms of how they should come into this space, make partnerships with their portfolio companies, and also just advise them on the best way, whether they're doing an NFT drop or trying to just really dive in and switch their strategies. So definitely corporations. And then also fund of funds is kind of that last LP, because they're looking at funds, they're trying to do their risk tolerance. A lot of them have this now new money added to invest in this exciting upcoming space, so looking for them as well.
Okay, cool. So one additional question, in terms of, we always have to ask this question. We've seen what's happened in the last 6 months. It's like an implosion of the crypto environment, an implosion of the NFT environment, an implosion of the public equities market. Mm-hmm. Everything's like taking a dump. And you have to worry, right? On the one hand, you have to worry. Mm-hmm. That's what most people are thinking. You know, I've got a lot of investments in these environments, and they've taken a real a cut. So is this still a good time to be investing, and what does your mind tell you about the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, personally I think it's the best time to invest. I'm not just saying that because we're raising a fund, but if you look at the companies and the VC specific companies, most of them actually started in downturn, and those are the best ones that you're hearing of nowadays. But in terms of the market, so a year ago we would go invest in a pre-seed and a seed, and there were so many people who were so excited about Web3 that people were just throwing money as they didn't care about valuations, and you couldn't push back, because if you push back, like, somebody else would just come in and fill the round. But now we're actually really able to, first off, have a little bit longer on deals, so able to do more due diligence, really just follow on the process, and then also we're able to push back on valuations. And that's because, not because we think that they're less than they are, but we're actually putting it back to the numbers that they should have been. And then by having lower valuation, we're able to get a greater multiple as a VC fund in the future when they do have a liquidation event, because we're coming in at a lower valuation. But I think all in all, it's just an exciting time in general. Like, I think if you just focus on where the market's at, but not where the market is going and where it's headed and what's really being built in this downturn, then you're going to miss out on an opportunity.
Great. So I'm gonna have you shout out 2 things, right? One is you shouted out the kind of LPs that you're looking for, mm-hmm. LPs that are interested in Web3. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is a shout out to specifically what kind of companies in the Web3 space you're looking for.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're generalists. We're pre-seed to Series A. If we're gonna do pre-seed, would like to see some traction, would like to see a product market fit. So that's kind of how we fall into that seed range. But I really want to focus on not just another NFT project. Like, I think when people hear I'm a Web3 fund, they think, oh, I'm doing this NFT project, do you want to invest? I'm like, no. Behind that NFT project, there needs to be a company. You need to be building, and it needs to not, the NFT project isn't recurring revenue. Like if you do an NFT drop, you're not going to go get this recurring revenue where you could go continue to invest. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what's going to bring in the next generation of 100 million individuals into the space. And I'm looking for really just the infrastructure behind Web3.
And so the companies that need to find you that are doing these things, are you geographically skewed, or are you looking at global companies, and how do they find you?
Yeah, we're global. You can find me on Twitter at Trading Female. You can look at our website, Redbeard Ventures, and we have a tab where you could input your company information. We're always sifting through and looking through that. But I'm going to be honest, this isn't just alpha on this podcast. Like most VC funds would say that they don't take a lot of inbound. Because if you really want to get in touch with them, like you could look through their network on LinkedIn or find somebody to help make that introduction. And I would say that if you're a founder looking to get in touch with a VC, like put in the effort to get an introduction, because a warm introduction will get you 100 times more meeting.
Oh, I've seen that. I'm so glad you talked about it. It's like, guys, do a little bit of work. If you write a complete sentence, that is a start.
Yeah.
And then mention a name that I know.
Yeah, you don't even have to know him. You could just fake know, be like, I know this person from my past, and I'd be like, okay, now I gotta give you time. But realistically, like most founders, I feel like don't put in the work. Like similar to sales, like it's easy to just automate the whole process, send out numerous emails, and just call it a day. It's like, but if you seriously like have VC funds that match your thesis and match what you're building, like put in the extra effort, because I believe it'll go so much further than having the extra 100 meetings with just companies that don't match.
Absolutely. Look, if you're raising funds or you're building a company, and if you're not willing to spend that half an hour, it says something about you.
100%.
Yeah, so Elena, it's been such a pleasure. It's been such a pleasure having you. Your energy, enthusiasm, and just the drive that you have is going to go so far.
Well, thank you so much, Graham. I appreciate you having me.
I really appreciate it. And I'm counting on you to come on our podcast, Link to Learn, and talk about all the things to evaluate, identify, and fund companies. That's something that we're really looking forward to.
Yeah, well, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.